Hey everyone, Matthew here. I wanted to show off a quick technique for effects EQ isolation in Traktor that doesn't need modifier states. So real briefly, effects EQ isolation is the idea that when you apply an effect to a playing track, rather than apply it to the entire track, you want to apply it to just the highs, mids, or lows. So there's it just on the highs, just on the mid, so the bass is still carrying on, or just the lows. And the problem with many of these mappings in Traktor is they're really advanced. They use states, and that's why I can select each of the frequencies maybe independently. But to do that, they need what Traktor calls modifier states. And Traktor only has 8 modifier states. So I'm using a Control X1 for my transport controls, a Control Z1 for my EQ stuff, and then a Modifier 3D with the MF Spectra FX squared mapping, which is a fantastic mapping, tons of effects, and then tons of the really advanced instant grat style combos where the buttons do something different independently, and then together they're a combo effect. And to do these combo effects, the mapper Flash Flutter in this case needs to use a bunch of the modifiers in Traktor. So I wanted EQ effects isolation without having to modify off-the-shelf mappings, and I just really didn't want to get into touching every single mapping that I got and wanted to try out to make sure that it didn't use the modifier states that I was using. So I came up with a really dumb, simple, and I'm sure people have done this elsewhere, technique for doing highs, mids, lows just to effects. So like most of the mappings in Traktor, because there's no native support, you copy the currently playing deck from A to C, and then you hit the kills differently. So if this button is mapped to open up the highs on deck A and then kill mid and low, and then conversely on deck C it kills high and opens up mid and low. Same with high, mids, and lows, and then the top button will just open everything back up. So the downsides are obviously that you're going to lose deck C and then deck D if you're doing this on both sides. So if you're mixing from 4 decks normally, or if you're using remix decks or live input decks, this is going to hurt you. So the tricky part of that is you need to keep the decks in sync. You'll see that when I loaded a track, I'm actually loading both decks simultaneously. And I have a couple different, whenever I press any of my EQ effects isolation buttons, I'm resyncing the deck. So if I do like start a loop or something, I can press the button to resync it back up. And that's the trick of it, is that it's really easy to, stop the loop and then seek somewhere else. And unless I double up all of my mappings from deck B to deck D, it's going to cause problems. And there are more automatic ways to do this with a little scripting that I'll have in a different video. But for the really basic system, you basically just double up a couple mappings. I have deck load differently. And then when you are targeting effects on things, targeting mid actually works really well to kind of get that mashy feeling without interrupting the flow of the entire song. So that same effect across all frequencies really creates a halting effect, and just on the mids. A couple other side effects. I really actually enjoy having the ability to zoom in separately on two decks. I keep one zoomed in to kind of see the hits coming, and then I keep one zoomed out to see the rises and the swells. And then I've doubled up some of my other mappings. The volume adjust is doubled, and then I doubled up gain and filter. But this is totally up to you. I mean, maybe you want different gains or different filters across your isolation decks. So it's super simple, just a quick dive into the Traktor mappings. It's basically whenever I press any one of these buttons, there's 6 outputs for high kill, mid kill, and low kill across both decks, and then I'm just doing direct set to value. And it's pretty tedious to set up, and if anybody actually wants my mapping for the X1, I'm happy just to post it here. But I just wanted to show this as a proof of concept idea. And then all of these buttons, if you look at duplicate track A, I'm just basically mapping this to as many buttons as I can. And in practice, it doesn't actually slow Traktor that much to constantly reduplicate tracks, and that'll copy over loop settings and where you are in the queue and tempo sync and everything else. But yeah, that's it. With this, you can hit your effects with off-the-shelf mappings on any frequency you like, as long as you're willing to eat up the other 2 decks. Yeah, hit me up with any questions in the forum thread wherever you read this.